Welcome back to Franchise Player, and today we're talking about modern gaming and almost the infinite, endless selection that modern gaming provides. And initially that sounds awesome, right? You're like, hey, I can play any game I want whenever I want, right? Whether that's through a subscription service like Game Pass, PlayStation Plus, the Nintendo eShop, emulating games, and that sounds great, but I actually think having this much access to this amount of games at any time almost instantly actually does more harm than good. So today we'll go into kind of where modern gaming sits, all these subscription services, the storefronts, how these things actually I think have made gaming a little worse. If you'd have told me this was the case, back when I was a kid, I would have been like, wow, that's pretty sick, right? You can play any game whenever you want. It's not as good as it might seem. And a lot of media has gone that way, whether it's music with Spotify and Apple Music, Netflix, HBO Max, all these services, I think have actually done more harm than good. So sit back, relax, and let's talk about some video games. So with modern gaming, whether it's the PS5, the Series X, the Switch 2, the Steam Deck, or if you're just straight up on a PC or some kind of emulation handheld, we have more options than ever. And on one hand, it's incredible, right? You have endless amounts of video games you can play whenever you want. But on the flip side of that, I think it's a huge con because with the PS5, the Xbox, Nintendo, whatever, they all have some kind of service now, whether it's Xbox Game Pass, PlayStation with PlayStation Plus, and then there's Nintendo with Nintendo Online, right? The service they have, which I think is actually probably the least bad out of all these in terms of like what they're trying to throw at you. But the reason why I'm not a huge fan of these services overall and just kind of where modern gaming's at in general is a lot of these services are really almost making it feel like it's Netflix, HBO Max, Spotify, some kind of streaming service where it's like, with those services, you've probably been there. I've been there a ton of times, dude, where it's like you're trying to pick something to watch. You end up scrolling for 20 minutes and just kind of saying, screw it. And it ended up turning it off or like scrolling on your phone or picking something you've watched 1,000 times just to actually stop scrolling and watch something. And I feel like gaming is kind of in that same place. Like, especially if you're not a physical game collector, there's just too many options out there. And that used to not be a problem back in the day. I would say pre-7th gen, right? So pre-PS3 and 360. I know that's getting a little older if like you're a younger gamer. Those were times where you kind of played whatever you had, right? Whether it was a game you got for your birthday, something you picked up at a GameStop, like you studied that game, you knew everything about it, and you enjoyed it from front to back. When I was a kid, I didn't have like hundreds of games. Like I had a handful that I'd usually get every year. Or maybe I'd go and like wash cars in my neighborhood or, do a lemonade stand to go and buy a game. I actually did that, by the way. I would have, I'd sell lemonade out of a lemonade stand and go and buy like Game Boy games. But nowadays, there's just so many options at your fingertips whenever you want it. And like I said, on one end of the spectrum, it's incredible, but it leads to just, I think, analysis paralysis and basically just scrolling forever and trying to figure out what to play because there's so many sales. Midnight releases are no longer a thing really, right? Where people are waiting outside of a store like, hey, you just pre-download it and then as soon as it hits midnight, you're good to go and can play it. So I don't know, gaming is in a very strange place that there's just so much out there. The market is so flooded. You can never really be bored on one hand, right? But I think a lot of people end up being bored just due to the amount of the selection they have and not being able to ever pick anything to play. Another huge issue with this, rather than just scrolling forever and not being able to find anything to play, is having a huge backlog, whether it's a huge digital backlog of games, a physical backlog of games. It's just, there's so many options out there where, kind of like I just mentioned, when you were a kid or maybe when you were younger or growing up, you probably didn't have a ton of games. So you really like honed in on the games you had, knew everything about them. If you maybe were able to stumble upon a strategy guide, you'd dig into a game a bit deeper. But now I feel like with having so many choices out there, it's like someone might download a game, buy a game, play it for like half an hour, and then just they're kind of on to the next new shiny thing. It's like gaming has almost kind of felt like it's turned into social media, like especially these storefronts where it's like they're just trying to grab your attention, get your money real quick. And most people I feel like end up not playing it. They're like, I have this massive library of games that I've spent hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on, but most people have probably not played hardly anything that they own. And it's a shame it's going that way. I think Game Pass is probably the worst of the bunch in terms of people just downloading stuff and maybe not playing it. Mind you, I don't have Game Pass, but I think Game Pass, now with the price just being raised, is kind of pushing some people back to be like, hey, you know what? I'm only gonna buy what I want. I'm gonna go more so on the physical route rather than just being milked month by month and having a huge selection of games that you may not even have the time to play. It really seems like the past decade has been where people have more games than time. And you could now say that, I guess, with content in general, whether it's streaming movies, streaming music, like you have anything at your fingertips in a matter of seconds, which I think really stops people from really enjoying an album, really enjoying a TV show, because you can just binge through everything or skip through everything so quick. Like back in the day, if you bought an album, whether it was a CD or downloaded an album on iTunes, maybe the album had a couple good songs, maybe it had a couple bangers on there, and if the rest were bad, you were kind of screwed, but you'd probably still listen to them. Now, if you go on, you stream a game, hey, you aren't really feeling it 5-10 minutes in, you drop it, and then you're on to something else, which I think can really hold you back from maybe discovering a game that you actually might like and that might actually end up being good. On one end of the spectrum, hey, if a game is trash, you can just drop it and you're on to the next thing. But once again, not a huge fan of just being able to jump from platform to platform, from game to game. There's a lot of downsides to that. Like, I think a lot of people don't dive as deep into games as they could have back in the day. And I think a lot of people have just gotten so tired of this modern gaming dilemma of this infinite choice, where a lot of people are just like, hey, screw it, I'm gonna play the same game that I'm comfortable with. I don't feel like scrolling, I don't feel like downloading something else. I'm just gonna play, for example, like Fortnite or some old Call of Duty or like a sports game or something that someone's comfortable with and they know they'll at least semi-enjoy for the hour or two that they have to game. Now let's talk about some ways to kind of combat the infinite choice that's out there with modern gaming, and to really spend some time actually gaming, not scrolling, not paying for 1,000 services, and just enjoying what you actually have. Now, this might be a little intense for some people, but I actually have a couple of videos of this now on the channel, but what I think is kind of fun is actually playing just one console for only 30 days. The last week or two can maybe be a drag in the challenge, to be honest, but playing one console for 30 days can actually be super fun. Whether it's, I did one with the Game Boy Advance, I did a 30-day challenge with the PSP. Obviously, you could do it with home consoles too, but if you just stick with a console for 1 month, even if it's something as recent as like a PS4 or a 3DS or something like that, it'll allow you to kind of detach a bit, dig into your library, play what you already have, hopefully not dump money into a subscription service, hopefully just be able to enjoy what you have and actually dig into a game. When you limit yourself to one console, like it might be like, oh my God, I can only play a 3DS for a month or a PS3 for a month. It's actually pretty fun. And the reason why it's so cool is like you can dig into games that you haven't played in years. You can explore games that you've never played, check out maybe some games that might be hidden gems for that console, and really just focus in on one platform, which I think is really cool. It almost simplifies your gaming experience and kind of makes it feel like old school, right? It almost takes you back to like, I don't know, the early 2000s or maybe the late 90s if you were gaming at that point, where it's like, hey, you had what you had and that's what you played, man. You weren't able to just go out and instantly get a new game whenever you wanted it. Another way that I think is kind of cool, where you can kind of combat this infinite supply of games at your disposal, not impulse buying a game just because it's on sale, whether that's on Steam, the PlayStation Store, or physically. And on top of that, now with the world we live in, not just filling up an emulator with hundreds of games just because you can. Like, obviously it's exciting, hey, you're emulating a PS1, download a bunch of games that are crazy expensive and play them, but limit yourself to what you're buying or even what you're just filling up on your emulator. Like, try chipping away at a couple games at a time. I feel like a lot of people nowadays, like, hey, maybe someone might be like, dude, you're tripping, what are you talking about? But I feel like a lot of people don't actually finish games that they start nowadays. I feel like, once again, back in the day, like early 2000s, mid 2000s, maybe even the 90s, like most people, when they picked up a game, they would actually play it from start to finish. Like, I can't tell you how many people I talk to now, whether they're friends, family, whatever, and they're like, oh yeah, I started that game, didn't play it, and then you just get sidetracked and start something else. But yeah, if you can, challenge yourself to maybe just actually starting a game and completing it, or maybe even filling up your emulator with just a couple games instead of like an entire library. I think that's a fun thing to do. Hold back from the FOMO. Don't buy a game just because it's on sale. Like, I see a ton of people that have these massive digital libraries or physical collections that bought a game basically just for the sake of buying it and have no intention of playing it. So like, I feel like consuming has also been a huge part of this like modern gaming issue where people are just buying just because it's out there. And another way I have that would be kind of an interesting way to maybe combat like this modern gaming era that we're in, maybe for, instead of going weeks at a time of just playing one console, maybe go a couple weeks at a time just playing one genre. Like maybe that's JRPGs, whether that's old sports games, whether that's old side scrollers. Kind of lets you dive into a genre, figure out if you like it, figure out if you don't like it. I feel like a lot of people nowadays get caught up in basically playing some live service game or some multiplayer game just because they're like, hey, this is what I know, this is what I'm gonna play. Like, doing something like what I just mentioned kind of gives you time to explore, find out if there's other things you like out there. Like something I've gotten into over the past couple of years because of this is shoot 'em ups. Shmups are super fun. They're a great way to kill some time, super arcadey. You can take it serious. You can kind of just chill out with it too and not take it super serious. And it's a really fun genre that I wouldn't have found if I didn't start exploring other things and kind of getting out of the mainstream. And this video is not to be some huge like hate video on modern gaming. I think modern gaming can be incredible, man. Like, I think the PS5 is awesome. I think there's a lot of good games out for it now, at least at this point in the life cycle. We're finally starting to get some decent stuff. The Switch 2's out. I don't have a Switch 2, but I play my Switch 1 quite a bit, and that's still getting some good releases. So don't, watch this and be like, man, this dude just hates modern gaming and thinks retro is the move. I play a lot of old games and I play a decent amount of modern games too. I just think the main issue right now is the analysis paralysis that a lot of people have because of these services. So I think there's a couple different approaches you can go, kind of like I said, like check out playing one console at a time, check out maybe playing a couple different genres at a time, stop yourself from buying, maybe cancel a game service and just stick with buying physical games for what you actually want to play. Like, specifically on Xbox or even PS4 and PS5, a lot of games can be had for super cheap. And if you even stop buying that subscription for a couple months, you can get some pretty solid games in your collection. Lastly here, I kind of wanted to talk about my current plans with gaming. Hey, if I just basically talked a ton of smack on like modern gaming and like praised retro, basically what am I doing? I've been playing a ton of PlayStation 1 games, and the PS1 is still incredible. I've been playing a ton of PS1 games, specifically on my Vita, which is great for time. I don't have to hop on and scroll. Like right now I'm playing through Parasite Eve, loving it. I never played it back in the day because I was too young. So really cool to go back, explore some games I've never played. Another thing I'm doing is I'm really holding off on buying games and subscriptions. Like, I haven't had a PlayStation Plus membership in forever. I'm really just trying to focus on what I have. And with that too, another thing I'm doing in games, and I used to not do this back when I was like a teenager or even in like my early 20s, is I would really rush through games, try to beat them as fast as possible, or if I was playing online, I'd try to grind to a high level as fast as possible. What I've been doing lately, like specifically even with Parasite Eve, is just kind of enjoying the atmosphere, walking around, taking the game at my own pace, listening to the soundtrack, admiring the scenery. I know that sounds probably like hella nerdy, but just enjoying the level, enjoying what went into the game and like appreciating that game for how good it was in the time and how good it is now. Gaming is in a good place on one end of the spectrum with all of the options. I mean, for some people, hey, maybe subscriptions are worth it. Maybe having all of these games at your fingertips and disposal is great. But on the other hand, I think it's cool to go back, explore some things, go at your own pace, and don't constantly buy into, just being sidetracked by these services and scrolling through them just endlessly. Like, hey, it might not hurt to grab your PS2, dust that thing off, plug it into your TV and play that for a couple weeks. You won't have any ads, you won't have any updates, you won't have anyone trying to sell you anything, and you can just focus on that game. So it's basically another rant video. I know I occasionally do stuff like this where I'll just like rant on a topic for like 15 or 20 minutes, it seems like, but that's how I feel with modern gaming. Like I said, this isn't a video to hate on modern gaming. I think there's a time and a place for it, but it's totally cool to go at your own pace, not buy into all these subscription models. But yeah, let me know what you think of modern gaming. Let me know what you think of going back and playing some older games. Do you think we have too much selection of games out there? Do you think there's too many services out there? And where do you see things going? Because personally, I think it's only going to get more expensive on these services. But as usual, appreciate you for watching, and we'll catch you soon with another video.